said, hey, listen, why don't you come to Chicago? I'd like to meet you. 2 weeks later, I fly to Chicago and I meet W. Clement Stone and his staff. Now, W. Clement Stone is the president of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Now, for your viewers out there who do not know who Napoleon Hill was, he was by far America's most prolific self-help writer. Here is a white gentleman born in Wise County, Virginia, in the teeth of poverty, who carved out an illustrious writing and speaking career. He wrote 16 books in his lifetime. 6 of his books you can go into any bookstore and buy today. His first book was entitled Laws of Success, in which he interviewed nearly 500 men and women to try to find out the keys to success. But his all-time bestseller, published in the 1930s, was Think and Grow Rich. So W. Clement Stone said to me in that interview, he said, young man, you're not the first person to go around the country interviewing successful African Americans. And I was taken back. I was aghast. I said, I'm not? He said, no. He said, Napoleon Hill was doing this at the time of his death. And during the course of our meeting, he reached across his credenza and hand me the last 100 written pages of Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill was working on a black version of his all-time classic, Think and Grow Rich. He handed me those 100 pages. It was entitled Blacks Are Growing Rich. And he put it in my lap and he says, based on what we see in here, we want you to complete, finish, and update this book. And I was just astounded. I said, well, Mr. Stone, I'm honored, but I can't do that. He said, why not? I said, well, I'm writing a book of my own. He says, push your book aside and finish this book. So, I finished the book. It became Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. But the book that I pushed aside was What Makes the Great Great. And after I finished that, I immediately went to my first love.
Okay, let's end this one up a little bit. What was the consensus here in this particular book? What were you trying to get over to the readers?
I had a chance to sit down with probably 50 of Black America's most wealthiest. And you'll find many of entrepreneurs that I spoke about there, and they all talked about vision. You take the word capitalism, Vicki, write it on a piece of paper. C-A-P-I-T-A-L-I-S-M. Take the Latin derivative of the word capitalism, C-A-P-U-T, caput. What does it mean in Latin? It means head. What's the one thing you must use in order to survive in this free and open society? I like to think that book, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, really caused a revolution in Black America. Capitalism is not a dirty word. Capitalism means that everything is for sale. That's all it means. And when you look at capitalism, we live in a society in which is not divided between black versus white, liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, male versus female. No, our society is not divided along those lines at all. We live in a society that is divided between dreamers versus non-dreamers. And people get in trouble in life, not because they wanted too much. They get in trouble in life because they settled for too little. And the bottom line, what I was trying to say, and I guess Napoleon Hill too, is don't settle for it. There's no need to settle in this free and open society. I mean, you are blessed to live in a country that has produced 80 billionaires. And we live in a country right now that has produced 80 billionaires. We live in a country that has produced 5 million millionaires.
And that's a lot.
And we'll talk about that
and
after
listen,
the break.
We've got much more to come, and you got to stay tuned.
A challenge for your mind.
Thank you for watching us here on Open Window, a program designed to enlighten and embrace the community and the world around us. We here on Open Window would like to take this opportunity to reach out to you, our viewers, for support so that we will continue to bring you delightful and quality programming. You may make your tax-free contributions or donations to the name and address shown on your screen.
Open Window.
Entitled Soul Survivor. Quoted from Chancellor Williams, a famous author and educator who wrote, "The only reason why I'm here is because somebody held on." A 30-year-old mother was told she was in the advanced stage of terminal cancer. One doctor advised her to spend the remaining days enjoying herself on the beaches of southern Florida. A second physician offered her the hope of living 2 to 4 years with the grueling side effects of chemotherapy and radiation treatment. She made the decision to notify her 3 small children in a moving letter, and I quote, "I've chosen to try to survive for you. This choice will have some horrible costs, including pain, loss of my sense of humor, and moves I'm not able to control. But I must try to..."
Hi. Welcome back to Open Window. You've just watched a portion of a videotape of a wonderful graduation exercise, Booker T. Washington High School in Atlanta, Georgia, where our guest today, Dr. Dennis Kimbro, was the keynote speaker. You quoted something at the beginning of your speech there called "Soul Survivors." I like that, and it's found here in your your third book, Think and Grow Rich.
Daily Motivations.
I'm sorry, A Black Choice, Daily Motivations for African American Success. I like that. The only reason why I'm here is because somebody held on. I like that.
You know, just to give you a little bit of history about this book, when I finished Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, my publisher came to me and said, okay, hot shot, what's next? So I said, well, I was thinking about what makes a great, and they had the manuscript, and they said, yeah, we like it, but we don't want it right now. And I said, well, what do you want? And my editor, she said to me, she said, well, we've received so many letters, faxes, phone calls about Think and Grow Rich being so inspirational, like wherever you pick it up, there's food for you on that page. We want you to write, you know, one of those meditation books. And I said to him, well, if you want me to write one, I'm gonna write it the way that I want to write it. And they said, well, how do you want to write it? I said, well, number one, I want a title for every page. Number two, I want to have a quote, and then I want to tell a story on that page. So what you have right there is Soul Survivors, and that was really written. My mother was dying of cancer. She never got a chance to see or hear me speak, but she sees and hears me speak all the time right now. And she was in a hospice. She was dying of cancer, and I was there in the room right there, and I was thinking about Soul Survivors. When I was going through the tough days and the dark days of writing Think and Grow Rich, Vicki, anything that could happen, happened. I can't begin to tell you how many times my gas, lights, water, electricity was cut off. I didn't lose one car in the process, I lost two. Almost on 5 different occasions, I almost lost my house. And my mother, she would come down from her New Jersey home and she would hold me and she would pray with me and she would counsel me, keep going, keep going, keep going. And it was somewhat ironic that she was able to hold on until the book was published, and then I guess if you're only going to write one book in life, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice is the book to write.
That's it.
And then so that was really sort of dedicated to her.
Yeah.
Somebody survived. No one makes it alone. And then I thought about the words of John Johnson of Ebony Magazine when I got a chance to interview him. We were talking about success and achievement, and he said to me, he says, you know, success is like a relay race. I said, what do you mean, Mr. Johnson? He said to me, he says, a relay race isn't won or lost in how fast the runners are. You can have the 4 fastest runners, but if they're not skilled and passing that baton from one runner to the next, forget winning the race, forget achievement, forget accomplishment. He went on to say, in lane number 1, we have Colin Powell. In lane number 2, we have Maya Angelou. In lane number 3, we have Oprah Winfrey. In lane number 4, we have, you know, whoever, you know, men and women who have run the race of their lives. Now they've come around the final term, holding this baton called success, leadership, and achievement. And we have to make sure that the next generation is fit, focused, ready to run the race of their lives. So the only thing that I spoke on when I spoke to these kids at Booker T. Washington High were 2 things. Number 1, vision, and number 2, discipline.
And that's what they need.
Oh, they need a vision. Get a big dream.
We perish because we don't have vision.
Everything happens to you twice in life. Number 1, the inner, then the outer. The thought, then the thing. The mental, and then the physical. That's what's meant in the Bible. The first shall be last and the last shall be first. I mean, people think, well, you know, what does that mean, Pastor? Well, black people have been last all these years one day. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that we live in a society, we operate under a thinking pattern that I won't believe it until I see it. Until I see Vicki seated right here, I won't believe it. Until I see that car parked in my driveway, I won't believe it. No, our master, our creator tells us no. The physical you play the physical you place first. I don't want you to do that. I want you to put the mental first. Put the mental first. The mental that you have last, put first. In other words, get the dream, put that first. And after you have the dream, then comes the physical. And then I spoke about discipline. Discipline is the wherewithal to do what you have to do when you know that you have to do it, whether you want to or not. This is the first generation. We call it Generation X. I have 3 daughters, all of them members of Generation X. But they're the first generation that sees discipline as something bad. Discipline isn't anything bad.
That's right.
Discipline is the key to the kingdom. Without discipline, you can't have a thing.
I love it. I love it. We've got to take another break right here. I hate to take these breaks because you're on a roll and you're giving out so many things here on Open Window, but I want you to stay tuned. Don't you dare go away.
Thank you for watching us here on Open Window, a program designed to enlighten and embrace the community and the world around us. We here on Open Window would like to take this opportunity to reach out to you, our viewers, for support so that we will continue to bring you delightful and quality programming.
Welcome back to Open Window. Our today's guest is Dr. Dennis Kimbro. We've been talking about all of the books that he's written so far, but you've got some things coming up too. And we're going to talk about that later on. But right now, let's go back into what makes the great great. What makes the great great?
There is no greatness without a desire to be great, Vicki. And clearly, any individual can take many of these 9 different points, and I don't care where you are in life, incorporate them in your life. We all have the ability to make a difference. I remember when I went to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and sat at the feet of a little black washerwoman by the name of Osceola McCarty. I mean, here's a woman who started working at age 8, didn't quit to age 84. Everybody in Hattiesburg laughed at her. She took in the wash of the community, and chances are, if you and I had been there, we might have laughed too. But one thing about this little washerwoman, she saved every dime that came by her hand. And after nearly 80 years of work, she amassed a personal fortune in excess of $250,000. And one day she gets a phone call from a banker, and the banker says, "Ms. McCarty, I hope I'm not imposing, but being a senior level VP at this bank, I'm obligated to ask you the following question. But before I do, it's no secret, you do have a sizable investment at our institution. And yes, sweetheart, you are getting up in years, but the question begs asking, what do you want done with your resources at the timely nature of your death?" And she said, without batting an eye, she said, "Sir, that's no problem at all. I want you to take the first $100,000 and give it to my church, and take the remainder, more than $150,000, and give it to worthy and deserving black college students at this school." And he said, "What school?" She said, "The school right here in town." He said, "You mean to tell me the University of Southern Mississippi?" And she said, "Yes, sir." Now, this was a school that she was barred from attending because of her race. And she sat in her rocking chair, just rocking back and forth, holding an old, beat-up, tattered, covered Bible. And I said to her, I said, "Miss McCarty, you know, what is greatness? What is success?" And she said, "Young man, do as much as you can for all that you can." And therein really lies the key. You know, it's about making a difference. The tragedy of our society, we get caught up in the material side of life. You know, we live here in Atlanta, Georgia, and blacks are really doing well. African Americans are really doing well, Vicki. We are the 9th wealthiest country on the face of the earth. You know, we are, you know, financially, we're knocking on more than $500 billion of disposable income. Now, what's disposable income? It's income beyond food, shelter, and clothing. That's our spending money. That's our tipping money. As a race, we are bigger than Canada. We are bigger than Australia. We're bigger than Israel and South Africa. At one time, we were bigger than Israel and South Africa combined. It's what we do with our money that we could really make a difference. You know, we have the nice clothes now. We have the fancy cars. We have the Bentleys. Some of us have Bentleys. Some of us have Rolls Royces. Some of us have, you know, BMWs and Mercedes. But, you know, looking at the people that I interviewed, you know, there are many different forms of wealth. And the highest form of wealth right now is the ability to make a difference in somebody else's life. And that's what Miss McCarty was all about. When Ted Turner heard what this little black washwoman did with all of her money, he called a press conference at his Turner Studios at TBS. He called a press conference and he said, "If this woman can give every dime that came by her hand, I can easily give $1 billion. A young man walked up to her and says, "Miss McCarty, how does it feel to be a philanthropist?" She said, "What's that?" She gets a phone call from Bill Clinton. He says, "Miss McCarty, I want to bring you to Washington, D.C. I'm going to bestow on you the highest medal, the highest award, achievement, recognition that I can give to a private citizen." She doesn't like to fly. She takes the train from Southern Mississippi all the way to Washington, D.C. Never been to a McDonald's drive-through window in her life. She goes into a public restroom. She washes her hands. She didn't even know what the hand blowers are for. You know, so first time she ever stayed in a hotel, she checks out the hotel the next morning, but she makes up the bed before she leaves. I mean, the ability to make a difference in someone else's life, and that's what we are inclined to do as a race right now.
And that's what makes the great great.
Exactly.
I had a chance to meet her at a function here in Atlanta. Magnificent black female.
Well, living proof there's a God.
Yes. Yeah. Let's go on to the last book here. Well, not your last, but the last one that you've written, and it's Daily Motivations for African American Success. Let's talk about this a little bit. I know that it seems to me every page has a different title. How did you come about that? What motivated you?
Just just walking to and fro, just listening, keeping my ears to the ground about society, and many of the ideas I got from my children. I got from what my mother taught me, from what my grandparents taught me. Just keeping in tune, just keeping your antenna up.
Just sliding here. Let's do dial 911. That's interesting. I just happened to flip over dial 911. What's this all about?
About raising your level of consciousness and raising your level of vision. Going back to the biblical phrase, if I be lifted up, I draw all men and women unto me. It goes back to an interview that I had with Wally Amos of Famous Amos Chocolate Chip Cookies.
Good cookies too.
Yeah. Wally Amos, not only, he didn't invent the chocolate chip cookie, but he did invent the chocolate chip cookie enterprise in the industry. And I'll never forget, Vicki, we were on the 22nd floor of the Marriott Marquis Hotel right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Halfway through the interview, he says to me, he says, "Young man, cut that tape recorder off and come here." He walks over to the windows, pulls back the drapes, pins me up against the glass, and he says, "Tell me what you see." And there we are on the 22nd floor, and I said, "Well, Mr. Amos, I see little cars and little people." He smacks me on the back and he says, "Hell, man, tell me what you really see." And I didn't know what he was driving at. And I said, "I don't know, Mr. Amos, what are you talking about?" He says, "That's opportunity you're looking at. You've been so far removed from it, you can't recognize it when you see it." Again, it's talking about raising your level of vision. He said, if I took an individual from the heartland of America, Iowa, Nebraska, and I said, "We're going to take a field trip to New York."
Hold on just a moment, because we got to take an opportunity right now to get out of this section. But don't you go away, because we have more of Open Window. Stay tuned. Hi, this is Open Window, and welcome back to our show today. Our guest is Dr. Dennis Kimbro, and we're talking about his books. And right now we're talking about Daily Motivations for African American Success. And you were telling us about a story of the famous cookie maker.
Wally Amos.
Yeah, I tell you, those cookies are so good. But anyway, you were in a hotel.
Oh, yeah. And so he says to me, if I took an individual from the heartland of America, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, that individual might say, "I hate New York. New York is crowded, it's congested, it's polluted. If the cabs don't kill you,